What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Bayview Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Andrew, joined as always, most of the time, by the other two wonderful hosts.
Always, most of the time.
They're usually here, Richie and Chris. What's up, guys?
How's it?
This is always like such an intense moment of where's Andrew going to go right out of the gate.
I know.
Yeah,
I think
keep everyone on their toes.
You just see the fear on our faces.
Yeah, if you're not watching it, there's usually just like open jaw anticipation of like
what's going
to happen. Yeah,
it's good times.
No, we are here most of the time. It is all three of us, but
it's a good gang. So, but no, we're excited about this episode. We've been going through our series here in September, all about go and this idea of going to our communities and going to the world and the spreading of the gospel. And we've talked basically out of Acts 1:8 when he says go to a place like Jerusalem and Judea and Samaria. And this past week, past Sunday, which I highly recommend you go back and listen in, tune in. But Richie, you spoke on this idea of biases and that they're kind of ingrained in us in some levels, or just it's just part of life in some ways, and how that can really though affect how the gospel spreads. So I don't know, you can speak a little more to it. But
as I was like thinking through kind of what I was going to talk about on Sunday, and it's just like trying to like build right off of the Sunday before. It's like, man, going to our circle is so important, but sometimes in life we make sure our circle's like an enclosed set of walls to our kingdom. Mm-hmm. Like we only go to our circles because literally that's our whole life. We refuse to interact with anybody outside of that circle. Yeah. And so just in thinking about Judea and kind of what that area represented in the time of Jesus, of this like idea of sectarianism or people being split apart based on their thought process or their belief system, man, it just really hit me hard about like, we are so quick as people to make judgment calls about whole groups based on one experience we might have or a handful of experiences that we have, or even the way we grew up, and then allow that bias to, in essence, kind of like in a subconscious way, tell us those people don't deserve the gospel because they're part of this group or they think this way or act this way. Yeah. And to almost like deny them love or affection because they don't deserve it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I even think biblically that was such in line with what we see happening in the New Testament, through the book of Acts and then on into Romans and really throughout all of Paul's journeys, that tension between, do the Gentiles deserve the good news? Can they have the Holy Spirit? And there were these sects of Jews who were like, no, of course not. And then I think even you get into middle late part of Acts, even when some of the Jews were like, well, no, it's cool that they get the Holy Spirit, but now they have to be circumcised, and it kept being these divisions, and we see that throughout the Bible. I mean, we see that in the forms of tribes and clans and nations and races, and there's bias based on your gender. I mean, in the culture, women were treated as possession, and so just by your mere appearance of what your gender was, there was bias. Yep. And I think bias, I mean, it's nothing we have to teach ourselves how to do. We have it from the very beginning.
Sure. Yeah, and that's kind of something we talked about just briefly on Sunday, was that, bias is a social and genetic response that's natural to us as people because it is our ability to create mental shortcuts. So that way, every time we see a person from a certain group, we identify with them in a certain way. And when you think about, early society, which was much more simple, bias would have looked more like they're a person, I'm a person, we're people, they're not a lion, right? They're not an animal, right? There is like a level to it that's like very basic that is helpful to us in knowing and understanding which situations are good for us, bad for us, if we should fear or not. And so, it's just kind of like hardwired into us. And you can see how at a very basic level, it could be super helpful. You can recognize if you should be somewhere or not, if it's dangerous or not, if you're doing the right thing or not. But then, as with everything, sin carries it to a place that's evil.
Yeah.
Sin takes what God made and said was good and creates it into this like morphed, weird version of it that is just like evil at its heart. And so, we develop these groups that are not for the purpose of like understanding, but instead for the purpose of excluding. And it's so easy for us to just get there and to live there, and for us to allow that to almost creep in, right? It's kind of sneaky. It's not always on the face. You're not always saying something out loud to show your bias, or acting in a certain way to show your bias. Sometimes it's just kind of hanging out in the back of your mind.
Yeah. It's almost like an involuntary response because we don't acknowledge it. So it is just always, it's like an app running in the background on your phone kind of thing. It's always running. And then without recognizing it, we probably do isolate ourselves from certain groups just naturally. You know, and you know, I mean, as you were talking Sunday, and even now thinking back, like, well, you know, growing up where I grew up, there were certain neighborhoods you just didn't go to. You know, and there were certain times you didn't go here, and so I mean, you know, crime and based on the divisions of that community in high school. I mean, how many of us? I don't know what the divisions are now because it's been a while since I was in high school, but I know back in high school, I mean, you had your jocks. You know, you had, you know, the super studious, nerdy guys. You had, I know for us, we had like the hard rockers, like the heavy headbangers. You know, that was your own little group. I didn't hang out with the headbangers, right? Like I wasn't that guy. I was a jock, and you had the dope heads over here. It was crazy. Like you could pretty much just, you could easily identify it, and everybody would just migrate to that circle. And you know, sociologically, I mean, I don't know that it's just all necessarily negative by itself in and of itself, because we relate with each other, and that becomes your little community. But I do believe that we begin to determine based on the groups who's right and who's wrong. And I think that we all naturally want to be in the group that's right. And if I'm right and you're wrong, well, then now that begins to change the way we engage and interact. And I think you said it Sunday, and to be honest, the groups we just flat out avoid.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it, is because sometimes as Christians, I think we hear Jesus say, love your neighbor, love your enemy. And we're like, man, that's tough. How am I going to do that? Like, how am I supposed to live in that way? And so rather than kind of like confronting that reality of, man, I really need the power of God to be loving towards these people, we just say, well, if I avoid them, then I won't be unloving to them.
That's right. Yep,
it's almost kind of like if I never interact with somebody from a group that I disapprove of or dislike, then I never have the opportunity to not treat them in love. So technically I kind of am loving them. They wouldn't like me anyway. So me not showing up also is kind of like loving them, right? Because they don't have to deal with me. But the reality of that is, we are kind of like taking a command that Jesus has given to us and like making it like into like this little corner case thing where we're just like, okay, that seems impossible, so I'm just not going to try. And almost like refusing this call that Jesus has put, right, of mission to be like, anybody that comes into your path as you go on your way needs to hear about this, needs to feel the love of God coming through you so that you can have the opportunity to spread the gospel to them. And that means you can't avoid them. That means you can't just walk in a different direction when you see them coming.
Which really is exactly what Jesus is laying out in his parable of the Good Samaritan as he breaks all this down. And we're going to kind of dive into that a little bit this coming Sunday. But I mean, it wasn't that, you know, the first two people that passed by this man who'd been mugged and left for dead, one was a priest, the other was a Levite, both religious leaders by their own right, both called into that place. Realistically looking at it, like, well, both of them should have known to do something. It's not like they went over and kicked dirt on the guy. It's not like they went over and checked his pockets to see if the robbers had left anything behind. They just avoided him. They crossed to the other side of the road. I think it says the priest crossed the other side of the road. And I think that is probably more where we are at as a church in our culture. I don't think we have a lot of Christians that are going out there looking to intentionally be mean to somebody or intentionally. I mean, I don't think any of us are out there, you know, throwing hate and shade at people. But I do think that the large majority of people that are following Jesus are really, really good. And I'm in this group too, are really good at just what you said. Just if I just avoid them, then we're all good. It's a win-win.
Yeah, it's almost I always think of like John 4 at the woman at the well. And you can even see it, at least I see when I read about the disciples. There's just like this like nonchalant like confusion of like, oh, what's Jesus doing? Like and it's they don't say anything derogatory, they don't say anything mean. They're just kind of like, that doesn't seem right. But then they go about their day. Like it's all, and like, so when you say like they had avoidance, it was like, yeah, they didn't need to go out and harass her or do anything. There was just like this, like I said, like this subtle confusion of like, oh, she's not one of us, or she's not part of our thing. Why is he interacting with her? And I think that's really natural for a lot of people. This is my group, this is my crew, this is what we do. I'm gonna stay here, and we don't even think about the reasoning for why we might avoid or why we might not interact with on a regular basis other people.
Yeah, and I always try and like put my mind in this place. If Jesus taught it, there's probably a depiction somewhere of him doing it, right? Because like he didn't teach anything that he also wasn't just living. He was teaching a lifestyle. He wasn't just like teaching principles. And so, even just thinking about the woman at the well, we talked about Mark chapter 12 on Sunday where, the scribe comes up and is like, hey, what's the greatest commandment? And Jesus, says the obvious one, love God. But then he says, love your neighbor, which would have been the completely not obvious one. But that idea of love is like this act of service kind of love, right? It's not just like a general, like, oh, they're nice. But it is like, I'm going to go out and serve that person. Well, then when you come to the woman at the well, Jesus had every right as someone who was a teacher, a respected teacher, and like precedent to walk the long way around to skip over Judea. Like there was precedent for that for teachers in Judaism, but he's like, no, I have to go through Samaria. And he, it's like divine appointment, right? He purposely walked through Samaria, and we have this account of the woman at the well, but how many more people did he meet, right? Like her whole town he ends up teaching, right? And spending time with, not to mention every other Samaritan person he likely met on the way that is just not an account for it, right? And so to me, it's kind of like Jesus is very specifically teaching us in the combination of Mark chapter 12 and the woman at the well to say, when I say love your neighbor, what I mean is that you're also not going to avoid them.
Yeah, no, you're true. In fact, I think one of the most convicting scenes that play out in the Gospels is when Jesus is actually having dinner. He's actually at a party with tax collectors and sinners, and they're all eating and clearly having a very good time. And it's the religious leaders, it's the Pharisees that come to the disciples, and the words they use are like, hey, tell me, why does your teacher eat with such scum?
Yeah.
And you read that, and it's so easy for us to get on our high horse, because I bring my high horse with me frequently. And it'd be like, oh, those crazy Pharisees, how dare they? But no, like, I have to ask myself, who have I decided are scum?
Yeah.
Because that's really what it is. It's no different than what Jesus is demonstrating. Like, listen, and that's where he gives the analogy, like, listen, I came for the sick. A physician doesn't need to go to people who are well.
Yeah.
And so, you were talking on bias on Sunday, and it's just been resonating with me. I'm like, wow, who have I determined? It's not that I'm uncomfortable. I mean, we can let ourselves off the hook. Well, I'm just uncomfortable. I don't relate. All the nice things we can say.
Yeah.
But you said a Sunday, and it's real. At the end of the day, who have I determined does not deserve to hear the gospel?
Yeah. Yeah, and like that feels super harsh to say, right?
Yeah.
And it feels super harsh to sit down and say to yourself, to just honestly ask yourself, who is that? Or to even ask the Lord, right? Spirit, would you just reveal to me the people that I think aren't worthy of love?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a guy named Miles McPherson. He was actually a pro football player for a long time. He played for the Chargers.
McPherson, man, no doubt.
But now he's a pastor
back
in San Diego.
Yep, at the Rock.
At the Rock Church.
Yep.
And he wrote a book a couple of years ago called The Third Option. And the book is all about it came out kind of like when the Black Lives Matter movement was a big deal. And so it was almost as a response to some of the racial tension we were experiencing as a country. But in the book, what he talks a lot about this idea that there's a third option, right? Where you can say you are fully a person, you are fully loved, and you are fully created by God without ever agreeing with somebody's lifestyle choices.
Yeah, sure.
And that's the third option, but that he argues in the book, that's the kingdom option.
It is
to say, man, yeah, you do stuff that God says is wrong, me too. We're all in that boat together. However, like I met Jesus, and he has transformed me from the inside out, not by anything I've done, but because of what he's done. And so, Miles is kind of talking to his church and then turns it into a book where he's saying, hey, look, if there's somebody that you see who shows up at a rally or something that you disagree with, they still deserve an invite to church. They still deserve for you to, if you bring your neighbor on one side of pie, you got to bring your neighbor on the left side of pie, right? Like you can't pick and choose which people you're going to live your life towards just because of what their, daily activity looks like.
Absolutely.
And, that book was really challenging to me at the time because it is so simple for me to just be like, well, I'm just going to kind of avoid that situation. That seems hairy. Like that seems like a tough thing. I don't want to put my foot in my mouth. I don't want to be a jerk, whatever. But the reality of that is like, well, no, I'm just like at a certain level, there are certain groups of people where I have said, man, they don't deserve to hear the good news that I have.
Absolutely.
And that feels so harsh, but it is so true. And it is the natural outcome if we don't live intentionally in another way.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Because our natural instincts are going to have us migrate towards what's familiar.
Yeah. Or comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think, I don't know if I said it here, we were talking, maybe I said it during a Bible study this week. I heard a blog, I don't know who it was from, or a podcast. It was a great statement. I can't for the life of me remember who said it, but it was an awesome statement. He said, I think one of the biggest things challenging church is our addiction to comfort.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've talked about it on here before even, and that's so real.
Yeah. Like
there's a reason I don't have those wrought iron patio chairs in my living room.
Yeah.
Those are terrible. I like comfort. I have comfortable seating. We like comfort in it that applies to our lives. And left unchecked and lacking intent, that's what we're just going to do naturally.
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to go that direction.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's so easy. It's like even the other night, I was sharing with you guys, like my wife and I were invited over to our neighbors to like hang out, and like, we kind of know them and have spent a little bit of time with them, but it's not like a natural desire, right? And my first response was, no, I'm good. I just want to stay home. Like, I just want to be comfortable. I just I come with all the reasons, all excuses. And it's just like, if anything, I've learned, like, I feel like when you remove yourself from those situations and pursue comfort, like you're really missing out on growth.
Absolutely.
Like, truly are. And it's like anytime spent working out or anything, growth comes from tension. It comes from like actually like working through something to be on the other side. And, it's like we went and hung out, and that could have just been a night where like we literally just hung out. But by the end of the night, invited him to church and just had those conversations. Cool. That was just like, wow, I almost missed this just because I wanted to like put sweatpants on and sit in my house.
Yeah.
Which is good at times, but like when it's done out of avoidance or convenience, like I think we are really missing chances to grow as a person, to be a better person. It's not a bad thing to have your thoughts challenged and to really think through what you believe and why you believe, and that comes from interacting with those that you probably don't naturally interact with, but there's so much good in it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think even, Fresh on the Hills and even what we're still seeing happening now with Charlie Kirk and his death. I mean, that was one of the things he did so impressively is he put himself in a position to at least have the dialogue, to have the conversation. He knew that very few people coming to the microphone were going to come and say, I agree with you. He was, but at least he was there and he was engaging. And I think a lot of us, like, we naturally choose sweatpants on the couch versus something uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Completely.
Do you guys think maybe, I've thought through this over the years, I feel like, and maybe speaking more just Western culture church, because not necessarily speaking church universal, I feel like Western culture church, I think we've got the process, the order of the process wrong or mixed up a little bit. Is that I think most Christians would say, no, everybody is welcome. Everybody deserves to hear the gospel. Everybody deserves to be loved. But the order of that process, typically, if they were honest, and if I'm honest, I probably naturally would fall into this is, all right, step one, get your life together. Get your act cleaned up. Step two, start looking and acting like me and look more like how I'm comfortable to be. Come and do the things, do the things that I think you should be doing and living the way I think you should be doing. And then through that, now you're going to be in a position where we can love you and let you find Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be real. That's probably the most comfortable version of how this goes. That somebody gets it all figured out. And that is the most ludicrous, ridiculous, anti-gospel process ever.
Yeah.
And there's nothing about Jesus' ministry or his life that demonstrates that's the order of things.
Mm-hmm.
The order of things is you come to Jesus when you're an absolute mess. And the way you come to Jesus when you're an absolute mess is that his people have come and they've loved you where you are. We've gone and we've engaged you where you are. We've listened. We've done it with gentleness and respect, as we read in 1 Peter. We go in and we engage you right there. And through that love, through that time, we have the opportunity to love you like Jesus loved you. And you see Jesus' love through how we begin to first engage with you.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever going to be intrigued about this love if the first exposure they get from us is something opposite.
Yeah.
I think that's why the church sometimes gets a bad rap, because the mentality is look like us, then be accepted by us.
Yes.
And I think we miss it. Like that's the comfortable route of, oh, now I feel like we're on the same page. Now we can talk about Jesus. And that just, I don't know. My wife shares a really interesting story because she grew up in Japan and grew up, schools she went to were all like just different people, different ethnicities, like everything. And when she moved back to the States, she was working at an Outback, and she was, one of the front hostess. And she shares the story of, she sat this lady, she came out, and this lady just kept giving her looks. This older lady just kept giving her all these weird looks. And finally, this old lady came up and said, "Did you sit me with the minorities on purpose?" And Nicole's like, "What do you mean?" And so, "Did you sit me over there on purpose?" And Nicole was just like, again, this is where like this idea, she had literally no concept of,
she didn't see it that way at all.
That thought. She's like, "I just sat you, ma'am," and didn't even think of it that way. But it was like that woman, and whatever, this is years ago. Like there was the desire was comfort. The desire was, I want to be where I feel like I fit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. It was a very image focused mentality. And I think that's with the church. Like we do that. Like we become very image conscious, and we miss like the heart. We miss like the inside. We miss like the actual person. And it's a dangerous line to walk. It really is, because it's a door shut mentality. The doors are shut, but you're welcome in.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really easy as a church to become a country club.
Oh, all day long.
It's way easier to be a country club than a church.
Yeah.
Because a country club, you can make people feel uncomfortable for the way they dress without even having to say anything.
Mm-hmm.
You can make people feel uncomfortable that they don't really belong here without ever saying a word about it to them, right? You just develop this sense about you and as a community. And it's like, I'm sure all of us have experienced this, being in church like our whole lives, being pastors' kids, of like someone coming into church, right? And like someone coming up and being like, "Did you see that person? Are they safe?"
Yep.
And it's like, well, that's not our job to figure out.
Yep.
Our job is just to be like, welcome here.
100%.
Right? Like
100%.
Jesus is for you.
Yep.
Like that's our job. But it's so easy to kind of fall into those things, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, did you know, like I remember when I was a kid, it was like a big thing was like, we would have dudes who were like in gangs and stuff come to church, and they would walk in, and it's kind of like, people would start to feel a little bit on edge, a little bit uncomfortable about it, instead of feeling excited. You know what I mean? Like we look more like the kingdom of God if people from all kinds of backgrounds feel like they can walk in the door, because that's what it's going to look like in heaven one day. And
absolutely,
I hate to tell like my grandparents this, but there's going to be people with tattoos in heaven. Like there are people with tattoos who believe in Jesus, and it's for real.
There are people with tattoos in this room right now.
Exactly, grandma and grandpa. I'm sorry,
like,
but
like all of us, right?
there's going to be people who colored their hair in heaven someday. There's going to be people, even like going more old school, people who danced who are in heaven, like to all my Baptist friends growing up. But it's just kind of like, it's like that old joke of like, one day you're going to be surprised when you see that kind of person in heaven.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, the way is narrow, it's Jesus, but the look of the people who find him is not similar, is not the same. Yeah. And, so even just kind of like, and, maybe that's something we could talk about a little bit too, is like, what does it look like to figure out what your bias is?
Yeah.
And what does it look like to kind of like address that as someone who's trying to look more like Jesus, who wants to kind of like confront the things in their life that maybe aren't helpful or good?
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And I think there's going to be people in heaven that did nothing good their entire life, never did a godly thing, never did anything, and in their final crying breath cried out in the name of Jesus Christ. And they're going to be in heaven. And we can celebrate the prodigal son moment, or we can be the older brother in that story.
Yeah.
And be all angry and mad. And that's really the heart of that story. But yeah, I think it's funny you said that, because I was just thinking through that. Like, all right, so who in my daily walk, and let's just quit being nice. Who in my daily walk, as I go through every day and in all the circles, we talk about circles, who am I putting that name tag on of scum?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Scum. I know nothing of them, most likely. I know how they look or their appearance, and a lot of assumptions go into that.
Yeah.
A lot of unfair bias, without any education on it. Yeah, I think that's probably the question for us to ask is, who's somebody that would walk in church next Sunday that would make me gasp
Yeah.
in a bad way.
Yeah.
Like, we've all had that moment, like, oh, I'm so excited. My neighbor's here. I've been inviting them. Those are awesome. But who would walk through our doors that I would literally be like, this isn't okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I always ask the question, why do I feel that way? Like, I've tried to be really conscious of, like, if there's something that spurs up in me of, like, where I get uncomfortable or I see someone who I'm like, oh, really? And then my next step, and this is, I think, goes in trying to be self-aware of just like, well, why do I feel that way? The person with face tattoos that walked into church, do I feel that way because I saw on TV once that all prisoners have face tattoos?
Right.
So he must be a bad guy. Like, almost, you know what I mean? But like trying to just be very conscious of, like, to me, again, I think it's self-awareness, but like calling yourself out of, like, what's the why? What's the reason? And I think that's what you were saying, like the one bad instance. You hate Florida because you had one bad instance there.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's such a good example of, like, sometimes you may have never even interacted with someone. You've just seen something else that says this isn't good, and your thought is, okay, that's bad.
Yeah.
And so, like, I just ask the question why. I like try to very
that's good.
consciously say, like, why do I feel that way?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, it's like, sometimes it can feel a little touchy to like call out some of the things that we know in general for Christians are true, right? It's like, it can be even stuff like, do I refuse to go into a place because of the signs they have outside their storefront? Like, it's one thing if you're like, I like the coffee here better than over there. But it's like, I've had the experience too where it was like, man, they're saying that they believe a certain thing by what they have in their storefront. Like, they're anti this or pro that. I don't want to shop there. I'm not going in there again.
Yeah.
It's almost developed this like self-righteous attitude of like, they don't deserve me to even, I'm not even going to go in their store because they're so wicked or because they think that. Yeah. And, it's like, especially in Traverse City, you're going to run into that all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And,
absolutely.
The easy one to pick out is like if they have a rainbow flag or not. But there's also all kinds of other stuff, right? Like there's Black Lives Matter stuff, there's race stuff, there's Israel and Gaza stuff. So many of the storefronts in Traverse City have some kind of indicator about what they believe in their window. Are we the kind of people who will be like, I'm not going to shop there, even though like maybe they have stuff that I would actually buy. I'm not going to shop there because I don't want to give money to somebody who believes that. It's like, okay, well, I can understand that. Like, you're not maybe going to donate to a charity that believes that. But is that an opportunity for you to develop a relationship with a store owner in Traverse City or somebody who works behind the counter, right? Or
I totally agree.
We got teens who work in these stores in downtown. I'm not going to go in and say hi to them if I know they're working or, you know what I mean? Like, what point am I proving in doing that? Who am I actually hurting? Right. Yeah. And those kinds of behaviors, I think, are like, kind of like running in the background too. But those are things that I think we tell ourselves, and also that like kind of like the Christian influencer world, as well as like a lot of the media outlets tell us are ways that Christians live.
Yeah.
There's like this narrative of there is a certain level of hatred that's allowed as long as it's like righteous hatred.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. And I think that we have to ask ourselves, why is it, and I've probably asked this before, why is it we're not just bothered? Why is it that we're so angry when godless people do godless things?
Yeah.
Like, what are we expecting? And it's funny you say that about the flags and businesses and all that. And again, we're not, I agree. Like, if it's charity, I'm donating, that's different. But it's like, okay, we know we're here to engage those who are far from God. We know we're here to share the gospel and the good news through our actions and the way we have to engage with them. We have to do life with them. And so am I saying that because of their beliefs, they do not have the right to earn a living and put food on the table and pay their bills?
Yeah, right.
Am I saying that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, none of us, again, no good Christian would be like, hey, that sinner over there, they should starve to death. Now, Old Testament times, maybe they would,
Yeah.
right? The beggar by the city gate, oh, he's a beggar. We're doing that.
Yeah.
We're creating the bias based on godless people doing godless things.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the exact places Jesus would have been found. They're the exact places Jesus would have shopped. They're the exact places Jesus would have eaten. And there's a very good chance that myself, that I could see in my worst moments, I'm on the outside asking that same question. Jesus, why are you hanging out with such scum?
Yeah.
And that's not our call. That's not where I want to be. I want to be sitting next to Jesus. I want to be in those places. I want to be engaging with those people, building relationships, hearing their stories, looking for moments to love them well and share truth.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of weeks ago, one of our residents here, Tristan, talked about how he's been going to the same coffee shop, bakery place over and over and over again on purpose, right? Every day he's trying to go in there. And the purpose of him going was specifically to get to know the people who work there.
Mm-hmm.
And these are all people who are living far from God.
Yeah.
There's not Christian people in this place, and he knows it, right? They're demonstrating that they are not people of God.
You're right.
But he's just showing up, and he's just being kind, and he's just investing in their life, talking to them, asking how they're doing, right? All these things. And now he's developed this opportunity to pray for people, to tell people what he believes, what's going on in his life, how Jesus is changing him. And to me, it's like, yeah, he is having to actively overcome a bias that would be easy to live in of, well, these are just people who are far from God. These are people who are living this kind of lifestyle. In order to be like, man, I remember when I was living a lifestyle far from God too, and I know the freedom I have now, and I want to give that away.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we're not, I think we get it twisted because we're not called to fix people.
Yeah.
Like we're called to love people. And I think that sometimes seems to be a major roadblock for people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're talking about with the church of like, you got to be like this, or discipleship is me fixing you. And it's just like, that's not how this works. Like you were simply called to love and do life with. And like, that's, I mean, Tristan is the great example of doing that. Like he's just like, nah, I just want to be friends with these people. I just want them to know like there's good people in the world.
Yeah.
And they don't got to change anything about themselves because that's not on him to change them.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's like the Lord is going to do that. He's the one that saves. He's the one that transforms. And I think sometimes we try to put ourselves in a position that we're the individual who's doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We get our job descriptions all mixed up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's not our job.
Yeah.
Never was. Nowhere in the Bible does that say that's our job.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll say this then. It's not our job to tell you what to do as a listener. So we're not telling you what to do, but I think that there are some really good questions for all of us to ask. They've been resonating and rattling around in my head since Sunday about bias and prejudice and the places I avoid or the people I avoid intentionally or unintentionally. And so I think I would encourage everyone that let that word scum rattle around. Don't let yourself out the hook.
Yeah.
Man, we do such a good job of putting lipstick on a pig, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not scum. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm gonna let that word be in my mind. Like if I avoid somebody, I have to own it.
Yeah.
I have to own it. And then I have to confess of it, repent of it, and let Jesus really radically change the way I see the world around me. And I think only when that happens will we begin to see this movement that is stirring right now, but it's got to go beyond just worship services and large gatherings. It's got to go into the everyday nooks and crannies of life where godless people are doing godless things and they need the good news.
Yeah,
100%. Absolutely.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for being with us. Always appreciate your time. And we're here each and every week. And again, I'll encourage you to go back, bayviewchurch.net. You can watch all of our past sermons, but go back and check out, if you haven't done so, Pastor Richie's sermon from this past Sunday. It was spot on. It was so solid. If you have not done so, click like or subscribe at the bottom of whatever platform you're listening to. That way you never miss an episode. We're here each and every week. So until next week, it's Andrew, Richie, Chris. We'll see you next time around.